What you need to know about coronavirus on Wednesday, April 1st. A version of this story appeared in the April 1 edition of CNN's Coronavirus Fact vs. Fiction newsletter. Sign up here to receive the need-to-know headlines every weekday. President Donald Trump has warned of a very, very painful 2 weeks ahead, finally leveling with the American people about the desperate reality of the pandemic and urging the country to prepare for loss of life at a magnitude unimaginable outside of wartime. The president's grave warning was delivered against a backdrop of virus models that paint an alarming picture of between 100,000 and 240,000 potential deaths, despite social distancing measures. Trump's marathon 2-hour briefing mostly lacked the elements of self-congratulation and false hope that have characterized his heavily criticized leadership in the crisis, Stephen Collinson writes. The president largely ceded the stage to his chief experts, armed with slides showing the rocketing rise of cases in New York and New Jersey. In a sign of the magnitude of the crisis, one of the more hopeful moments was a reference to Italy's downward curve in infections after weeks of agony. You asked. We answered Q. Should I be wearing a mask right now? A. The WHO says you only need to wear one if you're sick or caring for a sick person, but US health officials are considering whether to recommend asking everyone to wear them, a sign Asia may have been right all along. And there's an ongoing debate about which mask is best, not to mention a shortage of them, Jacqueline Howard writes. What's important today, we are not at war in the latest sign that no one is safe from the virus. 70 US sailors are infected on an aircraft carrier. The commander made this urgent plea to the Pentagon to save the lives of the ship's crew. We are not at war. Sailors do not need to die. Deadly day across Europe. France, Spain and Italy each recorded more than 800 fatalities yesterday, but there are hopeful signs that cases in Italy are slowing. In the UK, hopes that social distancing measures were starting to turn the tide were blunted by a record death toll of 381 yesterday, including a 13-year-old boy in London. And the government was forced to finally admit that its testing isn't up to snuff. Can you sue over coronavirus? Tourists who may have contracted the virus due to an outbreak at an alpine ski resort are trying to. Officials in Austria are facing a class action lawsuit involving up to 2,500 tourists over an outbreak in a popular winter sports destination, Nadine Schmidt writes. Fears of food shortages as farmers enter critical planting and harvesting times. Fears are mounting that the pandemic could cause devastating food shortages around the globe. Farms need skilled laborers to work the fields and a reliable supply chain to deliver their goods, but the outbreak has put both at risk, Danielle Wiener-Bronner writes. On our radar. One town in Wales has given a whole new meaning to herd immunity after a herd of wild goats took over its quiet streets. The world's largest lockdown is having a dramatic impact on pollution in India. After their shifts end, doctors are taking to social media to combat an epidemic of inaccurate information. Iceland is carrying out wide-scale testing on its population. Here's what they've learned. From Kennedy's kitchen to Biden's basement, candidates are adapting to virtual campaigning. Top tips: how do you cope if someone you know dies from coronavirus? While social distancing measures bring a double trauma, there are still ways we can try to comfort one another, Sandy Lamotte writes. In the absence of human touch, visual daily check-ins on video conferences with as many family members as possible can help in sharing grief. Setting up routines to remember loved ones who have passed by writing letters to them or sharing photos or memories with other family members can help process the loss. Even with the most supportive family and friends, you might consider joining a support group. Many therapists are conducting virtual visits. Today's podcast, this is so different than anything else I've experienced, despite the 40-plus years I've been doing this, Anthony Fauci, top U.S. infectious disease expert, said. Fauci has become one of the most recognizable names in the fight against this pandemic. CNN chief medical correspondent Drive. Sanjay Gupta talks to Fauci about his personal life, career and navigating the science and politics of his current position. Listen now. Click subscribe to receive the latest news.